Now this table gives the means and standard deviations for each of our items or questions on the satisfaction with life scale. And this can be useful. You can see which question people tended to answer the highest on, and that was question 3 with 5.49 average score. And then the lowest was question 5 with a score or value of 4.83. So these are the means once again, so the average of all 80 people. And then we have our standard deviations as well, and we can see which item were the respondents most variable on, were they the most spread out on, as measured by the standard deviation. And you can see here that question 5 produced the most variability in the respondents, followed by question 2. Okay, let's go ahead and move on down, and we'll skip this item total statistics table for a minute. Let's go ahead and go down to scale statistics. Now in this table we have the values for the total scale. Recall that I said that the scale ranged from 5 to 35 depending on the people's scores. That's the possible scale range. Where a 5 as a review would be where somebody answered a 1 or strongly disagree, I believe it was, on every single question. So they would have a 5. Whereas if someone answered a 7 or strongly agree on every single question, their score would be 35. So these are total scores here in this table. This is what this is referring to. So the average is given by the mean. Score on this scale was 25.5. And then the variance was 41.24 with a standard deviation of 6.42. And once again, the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. And this mean here can be found by adding all these individual item means together. You should get within rounding error this mean of 25.5. Okay, one last thing here that can be interesting when you're developing a scale in terms of whether you want to get rid of some items or questions on the scale if they aren't performing optimally. You can use this last column here. This is one way to do it. Cronbach's alpha if item deleted. Now, if we have a scale that's working well, each item on that scale should contribute to the overall Cronbach's alpha as is shown right here with the 0.875. Each item should be contributing to this. Another way to think about it is each item should be helping this to get higher or get larger. And what this shows us here in this column, Cronbach's alpha if item deleted, it shows us what the alpha would have been if the item was not included in the scale. And notice here that the first item alpha would have been 0.835 or 0.84, and you can see that in reality it was 0.88, so alpha went up with that item being included. And you can see with all of these, looking at it from the other perspective, alpha would have dropped or gone down if any of these items was not included. And you can see that item 2, it would have gone down by the smallest or least amount. It would have been instead of 0.875, it was 0.873. So it really wouldn't have dropped much. So for whatever reason, item 2 is not really helping in terms of coefficient alpha. It's not really contributing very much in terms of aiding in the internal consistency, reliability of this scale. But I certainly wouldn't want to throw that item out. It's used in research and it's not hurting the scale at all. And you don't really want to throw out items when you're using established scales typically. But if you're in the process of creating a scale and you saw one of these values really drop, it was much lower than the others, like say number 2 was 0.65 and this scale was brand new. It was just used in the research you're working on. Well, then that's really a good argument for removing item 2 from the scale itself. But when we use established scales, unless we're in the process of conducting some type of validation study or what have you, and we're making suggestions as to how to modify a scale, you typically don't want to be removing items and so forth. Okay, so in summary, the coefficient alpha, once again, for the satisfaction life scale with this hypothetical example, was very good at 0.88.